It's a long list of people that were waiting for me to fail so that they could say, I told you so. But more than that, and I think any parent out there can relate to this, I wanted to give my children a better life. And I'm not saying that my life was horrendous. I think my parents did the best they could with the resources they had available, but I knew that I wanted more for them.
Today on Look Both Ways, we're talking with Beth Potter, a purpose-driven entrepreneur, wife, and mom of three who spent over a decade helping boutique fitness studios grow and thrive. Now she's taking on her biggest venture, bringing True Movement, a Canadian-based fitness franchise, to the US. We'll talk about drive, motherhood, and rediscovering identity when life shifts in unexpected ways. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you so much, Jenna, for having me on. I am so excited for today.
You. Let's start at the beginning. Paint the picture of who Beth was growing up.
Yeah. So born and raised in a small town in Illinois, a very small country bumpkin. I grew up on a farm. I have two little sisters. And at the age of 16, my parents went through a divorce. That was pretty traumatic for all three of us girls, and we're 7 years apart. Also, at that time, I was really struggling with where I wanted to be in life and what my next steps were. Shortly after that period of time, I found out that I was pregnant.
Wow.
I grew up in a very, I don't want to say strict Catholic home, but my grandparents were Catholic. I went there every Sunday. We went to Mass. When you think back then, it was really frowned upon to, one, be dating at the age of 16, but to have premarital sex and then to find out that I'm pregnant. And to say that my parents weren't thrilled with it, it was a really hard time. So I made the decision, I think just always having that fire inside of me of just knowing what I needed to do, to leave home at 16. And I got emancipated. And when you find out at such a young age that you are bringing another life into this world, there were no other alternatives. I was having this baby. You start to think about the priorities and how life is going to shift and what you need to do and how am I going to take care of this child. And so I was a sophomore in high school. I just knew that that timeline was not going to work, right? You've got 9 months before this child is going to be here. And also, you're 16, trying to figure out who the heck you are. I mean, I don't think we know who we are even when we're 30, let alone 16. I got emancipated. I dropped out of high school. I got my GED right away. I took college courses, got all of my prereqs done. And then I was like, okay, now what am I going to do? I needed to be able to support this baby. It was me and her dad, my boyfriend at the time. We were getting ready to live on our own and figure this out. I thought cosmetology, like I could do that. I could do a salon in the house. I could still raise the baby. And I almost got all the way through that when I realized I don't like to pamper people. I like to get pampered. But like you're still got to make a living. Very long story short, what I had realized in that year and a half of going through school, taking Kaylee to daycare and noticing like the shifts in just behavior that she was having, I realized that I couldn't do this anymore. It broke my heart. I was having debilitating anxiety taking her to daycare and leaving her. So I went to her dad and said, hey, I think I should open a daycare in our home. I love kids. I could raise ours and teach her preschool. I can teach her all of the things. Before you know it, I was contacting everybody to figure out how I do it. Within 6 months, we had just bought our house. So I got certified and did that for 12 years.
How old were you when that shift happened? 18, bought your first house.
Yeah, we had just...
Were you both emancipated as teenagers?
He was not emancipated. His parents were like, I mean, I guess kind of old school in the sense of you're going to end up marrying this girl and you have a child. So we support you, go do your thing. And my parents started to come around at that time too. So yes, I got emancipated because I needed to be able to do my things. But then after the baby was born and things started to settle, they came back around. But it's hard. Like, I think especially during that time, it's so much more common now. And I wish we had the resources then that we do now, like this podcast, books, and people being more vulnerable with their stories. But the amount of times that I was told that I wouldn't amount to anything, that I was a high school dropout, that stuck with me. And if I'm being vulnerable, It stuck with me even till the beginning of this year.
Wow.
And I'm 39.
Building a business at home for 12 years. How many kids in your house did you have?
Yeah. So my second was born at the age of 20. So they're 3 years apart. So I had my son Caleb then. And I was DCFS certified. I followed the rules by the book. I also worked really closely with nutrition and health companies to make sure we were feeding the kids healthy, nutritious meals. I then got into preschool. So I was taking this very seriously. This was my career. I was helping to raise these other people's children. I was allowed 8 children at a time, minus my two. And then there's like different ages you can have. Like you can't have more than five under the age of five, two infants. There's some pretty strict rules. I was lucky at that point because my then husband got into construction and was laid off in the winter. So he ended up getting certified as an assistant so we could take on more kids. I have pictures where we'd have 15 kids doing Christmas parties and Easter egg hunts. So it was really a blessing. It truly was.
Feels like pregnancy turned into intentional career chapter around children and
Yeah,
parenting. I mean, in retrospect, things always can make better sense than they do in the moment, but
sure.
traditionally we ask children and teenagers, what do you want to be when you grow up? And your journey with ambition just evolved a little bit differently. Tell me about that. Did you have dreams and did you know what you wanted to do, or was it circumstance and the situation that you found yourself in that really dictated that first chapter of work?
But when I was really little, I always wanted to be an RN. My grandmother was an RN and I loved going to work with her. She was a role model to me. I always thought I would go into nursing. But I knew that probably wasn't the right shift for me having a baby and working in the hospital. Parenthood is what shifted that trajectory.
Did you feel a sense of wanting or needing to prove to the world that you were going to make it? You were going to
Oh,
succeed despite having babies young?
well, and even more than that, the amount of people, yeah, I mean, it's a long list of people that were waiting for me to fail so that they could say, I told you so. But more than that, and I think any parent out there can relate to this, I wanted to give my children a better life. And I'm not saying that my life was horrendous. I think my parents did the best they could with the resources they had available, but I knew that I wanted more for them.
Did you feel like you had people in your court as much as you had people rooting against you?
Initially, no. I felt like it was me and their father against the rest of the world. The daycare families where our kids were around the same age, we did everything together. And still to this day, our kids are very close. All of these years later, we still kind of connect from here time and time again. So, yeah, I mean, we really distanced ourselves from family.
I love that for you and for the survival instincts that you had and for what you wanted to create for your family. There's so
Mm.
much to be said for the family you're born with and the family you choose. You sound like quite
Yeah.
the ambitious young mother, which is just so incredible. What happened after those 12 years of daycare, both with you and your husband?
So, Kaylee was 12 and Caleb was 9. And it gets me a little emotional sometimes when I think about it, but it was around Easter. And back then, you'd get the pictures taken and then you put them in the photo album. I'll never forget it, but I was doing that for our Easter pictures. I looked at my then husband and I was like, who is that in that picture with Kaylee? And he looked at me and he was like, Beth, that's you. At that point, I didn't even recognize myself. And it hit me, like I said, I get emotional thinking about it. But at that time, you're dealing with kids all day. I lived in his baggy t-shirts and sweatpants. And you know what I mean? Like we were doing crafts and art and all of the things. I just didn't realize how much weight I had put on over the years. That day, we went and bought a treadmill. And I started really slow. I needed to get healthy. It started very small, working out at home, working out when people wouldn't see me, and then really deciding to take the next big leap, which was becoming a Beachbody coach because so many people were hearing my story. They were inspired by it, that they were reaching out to me. And over time, that got recognition to the local gym in our area. And so the owner had called and he's like, "Hey, I'm looking for somebody to come in and be a studio manager. You have great brand presence. We'd love to have you a part of the team." I said no for a year.
Wow.
What do I know about teaching other people how to lose weight? I only know my journey. Um, Scary, right? Like I had the opportunity, like, to be a room mom, to go on all of the field trips, to raise my kids, to now think like if I gave all of that up, am I going to be able to pick them up after school and on their snack and start homework? How am I going to get dinner or get Kaylee to dance practice? Matt worked such a laboring job. And so it was a big family decision. And after a year later, then I decided, you know what, I'm going to take the leap. I felt like it was my next calling. These kids were getting older, all of them, even my daycare children. Not that they don't need me, but they just didn't need me in the same capacity. And I was like, okay, well, let's give it a shot.
So you started working full time outside of the home.
It started part time. They were so flexible with me. They were great. I was able to get the kids to school. I remember getting up early, going to the gym, getting my workout in before everybody else in the house gets up, coming home, getting the crock pot meals ready, getting the kids breakfast, getting them off to school. And I would head to the gym. I'd work there till about 2:20 because the kids got out of school about 2:40. I'd be able to come home, pick them up from school. They let me do that every single day and then get them home, get them snacks, started on homework. They were able to be home alone at that point. And so I would leave. Matt was there, or he'd be getting home shortly, and then they'd have dinner, and I'd be home by like 7 or 8.
So sweet. So you did almost a
Yeah.
split shift to make sure that in the middle of the day you could pick up your kids and have some family time and then
Yeah.
went back to the gym.
Yep. Yeah.
What felt different to you? I mean, building your career in your 20s, to me, as an outsider, looks maybe like survival, right? When you hit your 30s and you started working in fitness, it almost feels a little bit more intentional. What was that shift like? You got to do something that wasn't fundamentally for your family. It was something that I would hope brought you joy.
I had two clients specifically that together over a year's time had lost 100 pounds each. And seeing that life transformation and just knowing that I had a small part of that. It's funny, my husband, Brent calls me everyone's biggest cheerleader. And I'm starting to understand why he says that now. But just being able to see the joy on other people and understanding like, just because you're in a position today doesn't mean that that's the end of your story. So it was very rewarding in that aspect. So much of our industry has been around, is it a hobby? Is it a side gig or a side hustle? Yeah, I left, I'm not going to say a lucrative career in early childhood education, but I got to be home all day. My salary as a studio manager was something crazy, right? It was very minimal. How do I climb? How do I make more money? And I always still had that part of me that was like, you're made for more. You have to prove everybody wrong. And I needed to chase. There was this innate calling inside of me that was like, I can't just do this. I have to do more.
Ambition.
Yeah.
That's what I've always called it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't feel like the world is always comfortable with women being ambitious. And maybe that's why
Yeah.
the word doesn't come to mind right away. But ambition is part of the DNA of who we are. I think it's something we're born with, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Within my first 3 months of being fitness manager, I oversaw the entire training department. I was with Anytime Fitness at the time, and they were just launching personal training. I had sold around $100,000 in personal training in like the first 3 months in a very small town, which was really unheard of. And so I knew I was on to something with sales, and it got me really excited. And then I started to get into the business side of the gym and with my mentor and the business owner, and then really understanding, okay, I can kind of see the profit and loss and how do we grow. And then, of course, came bonuses and commissions. And so that's really, I think, what set me. It was the success of other people. I always believe that if you put people first, profits come. But it was also that little competitive edge that I had with myself to see, can I hit those numbers?
how did the family life change as you were kind of dancing around the studio and sales
Yeah.
roles and you were developing into another version of yourself in your 30s? What did that feel like at home?
It was really hard. A lot of guilt over that time. just missing things from time to time. I would miss taking one of them to dance practice or football or basketball. I tried to be at everything that I could, but sometimes it just didn't work. My children's father and I went through a divorce. I think I was 33. So Kaylee was 15. That was a really hard time. My identity was mama and still is to this day. It was also his wife. Like he was all I knew. He was my best friend. We were together for 16 years. But when you go through such a transformation like I did, you start to discover, like, is that really who I am? And so it was a hard time. It was a hard season, but we got through it. Our children are amazing and resilient. Now we are the best co-parenting family out there. It was a very hard season.
In retrospect, your kids are almost out of the house, which we will talk about. But how do you make peace with some of that trade-off and sacrifice, knowing that they turned into good humans?
Yeah, great question. I don't know that I'll ever fully forgive, right? Like, I think there's still this constant guilt. And the one thing that I will say, having children young the way that I did, I grew up with them, right? Like, I've always been transparent with everything. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but it's worked for us. So we are very communicative about how we're feeling, everything that's going on. I'm an open book and they know they can come to me about anything. Missing some of their events was probably the hardest. And I don't know that I'll ever get over it. But I believe with my whole heart that they know if I could have been there, I would have. And we are role models to our children, and they've seen me grind. Kaylee always says, Mom, you're building your empire, and I can't wait to be you someday. If I instilled any part of their work ethic, because they're both such hard workers, and also them understanding what it means to be a partner, a parent, right? Like, then I did what I was set out to do. And life isn't just sunshine and rainbows, right? It's messy and we make mistakes and we own them. So there was a lot of lessons taught through the journey. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that they got to see all of that.
I love that. There's a theme that has come up in the first couple of podcast episodes. When the kids are little, we think that we have to manufacture their happiness. And there's a certain point where them seeing you be you is what the lesson is for them. I feel like them seeing you be this empire building badass mom maybe taught them more lessons than being at every single event when, you were there in spirit always. So it's almost this shift of seeing them just be a whole human feels sometimes more impactful than maybe showing up at every little detail and every little moment to make sure that you're present.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So Kaylee left the house.
Oh gosh, yes. So she went actually right after high school, she went down to Western. So she's about 3.5 hours from us. She stayed in a dorm with her best friend. It was a really hard year. We did a lot of FaceTime, thank gosh for that. Then her sophomore year, she came home because Caleb was a senior and star football player. She didn't want to miss anything. And so she actually just went to the local community college. So we had her back home. Then last year hit her junior year, and she decided to move into her own place with her boyfriend. They've been together for a really long time. When they are actually in an apartment, your whole life changes. There's no more Sunday family dinners. She's never here for that. I mean, I shouldn't say never, but all of the things that we did for routine as a family, and we were already a blended family. So that was already something that we had gone through. Now I see her once a month if I'm lucky. And we talk all the time, but it's been hard.
I'm not ready to think about that chapter, but I'm going to call you when that happens. Most people who don't have kids in their teenage years spend their 20s trying to figure out their identity and what their purpose looks like. I know that when you have children, just from my own experience, that your purpose and your identity gets commingled with motherhood, right? It's just one of those things where career and motherhood and ambition and everything just becomes like a jumbled, sleepless mess for a couple of years. As your kids are growing and leaving the nest, how has that changed your sense of drive or purpose or what your ambition looks like in this new chapter of life where maybe you missed that the first time around in your 20s.
Yeah, great question. I'm still trying to figure that out. I'll never forget. I was talking to her on the phone. I was driving in the car and I said, what am I going to do with my time? Because if I wasn't working, and we can talk about that because we need to shed some light on the last 10 years, the hustle and the grind, and how that's not always as healthy as what people portray. I mean, everyone sees the highlight reel, but they don't see what's really going on underneath. She was like, Mom, you need to get a hobby. So I was like, okay, well, I love my work. I love what I do. I love helping people, whether obviously that's transformed over the years from weight loss journeys to now I'm very business oriented and mindset. I love to put together operations and processes. And I want people more than anything to know that they can get into our industry and have a lucrative career out of it, right? It doesn't have to be that hobby. It doesn't have to just, it's not just your trainer or coach or studio owner. And so I think that is where it's hard is because when you love what you do so much, setting the boundaries around how much and when you're doing that work gets blurred.
Right.
And I picked up golf this year. So I feel like that's at least a good thing. I'm really enjoying that. But that's really the only thing that gets me away from this desk,
Right.
unless the kids are home.
And to a lot of people, fitness is the hobby. But to fitness
Hmm.
people, at least for me, fitness is an outlet. It's not
Right.
necessarily the hobby.
Right.
But for a lot
Yeah.
of people who have 9 to 5s, fitness becomes the hobby that can fulfill that aspect of life. But when you work within fitness, the game feels different for us as fitness people, where the outlet or the hobby is not as clean as it is for some people who don't work in fitness. Does that resonate with you?
It does. And I also feel like for me, fitness is almost it's just a necessity, right? Like it
Yeah.
is just I want to be here. I want to see grandkids someday. I hope to see great grandkids someday. Longevity is so important to me. I love fitness, but to me it's that non-negotiable. I have to be active. I have to do these things to take care of my body so that I'm here for the long haul.
Yeah.
It's the necessity.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about burnout. You
Uh,
were working out of the home with children. I don't know how you did that. That's just superwoman status to me. But then you were working outside the home, split shifts, coming home for dinner, crock potting, doing all these things. You're running around, figuring out the business side and the sales side and multiple different organizations. Did you burn out? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, and honestly, it wasn't until the pandemic, obviously, there was a big shift. Newly remarried, my husband is a multi club operator, and I was working in one of our studios as a manager. And then when the pandemic shifted, it just kind of changed everything. But I actually ended up moving and working for SE Brands, which is now Purpose Brands. And I worked at headquarters and it was really awesome. I got to kind of lead physical therapy all over the US and that was exciting. But I think once I made that jump, like that was the stepping stone of this trajectory of like constantly needing more because it created a higher salary, it created more responsibility, it created this title that I never had before. And I found myself over the last 5 years chasing that next salary, that next title, and I never seemed to be satisfied. And honestly, up until this year, I was still doing it. I hit the top and all of the things I proved everybody wrong. Everybody that said I would never amount to anything, I proved them wrong. I'm probably one of the most successful people in my family, hands down. And that meant a lot to me, but it meant nothing to me because it's like, what am I chasing? I dealt with burnout for probably 2.5 years leading up to January and just kind of pushed through because that's what we do, right? Like you just work. I don't even know if I was looking for attaboys. I don't know if I was looking for, I truly do not know what I needed to fill that void, but I physically couldn't anymore. And my body shut down this past January, where my body was like, you can't live like this anymore. And that is a scary, humbling experience when you are
Yeah.
an overachiever that doesn't ever want to admit defeat. Because from the outside looking in, I was doing it all. And in the inside, I was barely pulling it together.
Right. There's so much that we don't talk about physical limitations and your journey in a corporate setting is familiar to me. You're in those competitive environments. X amount of people get raises or promotions every year. There's titles, there's power. And I did that for a long time too. I did get to the top and realize, what did I think was going to happen? Was it like a pot
Mhm.
of gold or rainbows and unicorns? I don't know. But Beth, same thing. My body shut down. And I don't know that women or men, I think this happens to men also, know or study enough. And my background is in kinesiology and nutrition, hormone and adrenal functioning, and the way that even if you have the best of habits in terms of exercise and nutrition, your body can only handle so much stress. And work, love it or hate it, is stress. And the hours that we
Mhm.
lose sleeping when our kids are little, burnout persists because what we are trying to do, I think, sometimes is too much.
I agree. Yeah. And I think sometimes we're just, you know, I don't know that this is I mean, I do. I think it really is a woman thing because I think, especially in our industry, it's been predominantly male led for so long that we think we can keep up or that we should be doing what they're doing. For me, it was like I never wanted to admit defeat. I had a little bit of this perfectionism. I wanted to learn everything, and the only way to learn it was to do it myself. If I needed to teach somebody else how to do it, then that took more time than me just doing it myself, you know? And so, but yeah, burnout is a real thing. And I think it's something that we need to talk more about.
You've talked about how going through burnout has changed your definition of success. Tell me about
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, it was one of the hardest seasons. I've had a few of those, but I think we're supposed to. And probably the biggest blessing of my life. So I took a full month to really just calibrate to say, like, what do you want? And I got to romanticize my life. Like, I got up in the morning and I could read and I could journal and I had my coffee and I'd go to a workout class. I could take a nap in the middle of the day. Like, Jenna, I was living my best life and really thinking about what my next steps were. And I did a lot of soul searching. I did a lot of prayer and just research, even on the brain and like what we can handle. And I started just setting really strong boundaries. You know, I mean, we shouldn't be working more than 4 solid hours in a row without a break, focusing on that. I'm very cautious of my boundaries at this point and what I say yes to because it's saying no to something else. Now I truly feel like I'm in the best place mentally, physically, and I'm really enjoying the work that I'm doing. I know when I've hit my limit and I walk away and I don't have that guilt of like, oh my gosh, I still have to do this thing, right? It'll get done tomorrow.
I love it. And then you show
Mm.
up as a fuller person to the workplace.
Yeah.
In your 20s, in your 30s, your journey was, we'll call it atypical, and you had to build a network and a village to support you. What did your village look like? Who was in it? Who are the people that made that season of life feasible when all odds felt like they were stacked against you?
Yeah, I mentioned the friends that we had, like the daycare families and stuff. They were honestly some of our best friends and just really helped. If we couldn't be at something, they were at something and vice versa. My dad has been my rock, very supportive of everything. Anytime I need something, he's there for me. My husband, Brent, we've been married 8 years. He's probably my biggest support system and cheerleader. My kids are blessed with two amazing bonus parents. With the bonus parents, they get bonus grandparents. Our family has been incredible and we have amazing friends. I think especially as you grow as entrepreneurs, and Brent and are extremely busy, traveling every month and juggling it all. Finding friends that understand the busy and are still there to support you through it. That's been incredible. We've had some really long lasting friendships because of that too.
I love that. Was it hard to ask for help?
Yeah. And I think it in different things, like if I need something, it's real. I don't hesitate to call my dad. Like I'm not afraid to ask him for help. And at this stage of life, if I can't do something or I need it, then it's funny. I think Brene Brown had said this, but it resonated with me because it was like marriage is never 50-50. Sometimes it's 80-20, sometimes it's 70-30. Brent is really good about, if you got 60, I'll do 40, but if you've only got 20, I've got the other 80. He's been really great with that.
I love that. Personally, I was never comfortable, even in the hardest seasons, to say, "Can you help?" But I was always more comfortable saying, "I would be happy to help you."
Yeah. And I think too, different times, right? Because now I'm thinking back to like really the last 10 years of building my career and my kids being a little bit older. They were driving themselves. And I'm like, how does that even happen? In that sense, I don't know that asking for help was hard. The work side of it took a lot from me. But what I had realized, Jenna, in this journey is that if I wanted to climb that ladder, if I wanted to get to that next step, it really wasn't about me. It was about building the people underneath me. And the only way that I could build them up was to be able to trust and to delegate and to teach. So every role that I was in, sounds kind of silly, but my goal was to work myself out of that job. I wanted to put the operations in place and the processes, and then I wanted to train and backfill so that anybody could get promoted into my role, and then I would be promoted into the next role. Right. And so I got really good at not just transferring tasks, but to creating leaders in every organization that I've been a part of. And so, but that wasn't at first. I will say that it took some time to learn that.
What would you tell other young mothers? Retrospect is so powerful. How do you look at that season of time and what you built despite all the odds stacked against you?
Yeah, I have two that I will share. The first one, and I'm sure you've heard it, but the days are long and the years are short. And you don't realize how short those years are until you become an empty nester. Like it's hard. It's hard. So soak it up, every second of it. The other one is just because someone doesn't understand your journey doesn't mean that you're not on the right path. For a long time, people didn't understand my journey, but I knew with my whole heart that what I was doing would get me to where I am today.
It is so powerful.
Thank you.
Do you think your balance today comes from being resilient, finding your boundaries, or just having the grace that you just described with yourself and knowing what your journey would be? How do you feel balanced?
I've been an avid reader of personal development. Consumer behavior, what makes us tick, has been something that just pulls me in. And so it's been a lot of self discovery, learning who I am, how I respond to things for good or bad, how other people respond to me, and how I come across to people, not without fault, right? It's been messy. There's been chaos, but we are human. Our time on this earth is so limited and so short. And no matter what, when I lay my head down at night, I feel like I'm living my purpose. I'm doing what God intended me to do. That's showing up authentically. And sometimes it's messy, right? Sometimes it's having a breakdown in the middle of the day or spilling stuff all over the kitchen and you're crying because you don't have time to clean it up. Other times it's beautiful, right? Giving yourself the grace to know that you're human, you're going to make mistakes. But if your intent is pure and you're doing things for the right reasons, that's what matters. I want my kids to know they don't have to do what everybody else is doing. As long as they believe in their heart of hearts that what they're doing is what they're supposed to be doing, I want them to follow that.
I love that. To trust your own journey.
Yeah.
If you could describe your journey of motherhood and career in 3 words, what would those be?
Oh gosh. I would say it's been beautiful. It's been chaotic. I wouldn't change it for the world. You
I love
stumped me
it.
on that one.
As the podcast goes live, we haven't officially launched any episodes. I've recorded quite a few, but that question I've asked everybody at the end and definitely have thrown everybody off. I feel like once it goes live, people will know the question is coming. It's interesting to hear how everybody puts their journey into a couple of brief thoughts. Everybody's journey with motherhood is so different and so unique. And I just love, Beth, how you described knowing what your journey was going to be and trusting it when the world didn't, when family members didn't, when everything just looked like question marks, you plowed forward with intention and drive and ambition in a way where you figured out how to achieve and build the life you wanted. It's remarkable to hear your story.
Thank you so much. It's funny, my husband teases me, and I always say this. Rachel Hollis was like my built-in bestie with Girl Wash Your Face
Yeah.
and Girl Stop Apologizing. Got me through some hard times as going through my divorce. I had the privilege of meeting her in person this year and actually sitting down and having a one-on-one conversation with her. And I had asked her, I always have the next idea. I'm always on to something next. And I'm never really satisfied. I always want more. I asked her, I was like, you've been talking about this made for more for as long as you've been doing your podcasts and your books. And I was like, do you ever get to a place where you've reached the top? Because I'm like, when am I going to do that? When am I going to hit that where I'm not chasing that next thing? And she was like, absolutely not. She's like, that's what life is. It's the ride. She signed my book and she just said, Beth, you're made for more. And I just feel that, right? Nobody can tell me otherwise. I'm going to live this life to the fullest. It's the only one I've got. And yeah, it's exciting.
I love your story so much. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone, for
you.
listening to Look Both Ways. If Beth's story resonated with you, please share this episode, leave a review, and subscribe for more conversations about ambition, resilience, and motherhood.